Have you ever driven down a long, dark highway late at night and seen something that just shouldn't be there? Four truckers and late-night commuters on the desolate stretch of Interstate 80. That something was the exit sign at mile 142. Every single night, without fail. As the clock ticked past midnight, a green sign would materialize out of the darkness. It was a standard-issue highway sign, glowing with that familiar, almost comforting luminescence. It read, "Rest area, next right." Simple enough, right? Except for one massive problem. There was no exit at mile 142. Veteran truckers knew the route like the back of their hand. They'd been driving it for decades. They knew every bump, every curve, and every legitimate rest stop. And they all said the same thing. During the day, there's nothing there. Just an endless line of asphalt, flanked by dark, imposing pine forests. Check any map, from the oldest paper atlas to the most up-to-date GPS satellite view, and you'll find nothing. No exit ramp, no rest area. Not even an old, forgotten dirt road. It was a ghost exit, a phantom limb of the highway system that only appeared in the dead of night. For years, it was just a local legend, a creepy story to share over greasy diner coffee. Don't take the exit at 142. The old-timers would warn the rookies. Most drivers, spooked by the tailies or just plain common sense, would grip their steering wheels a little tighter, stare straight ahead, and speed right past it. They'd glance in their rearview mirror, half expecting to see something. But the sign would be gone, swallowed by the darkness, as if it had never existed. But the story was always there, a persistent whisper on the CB radio waves. Then came the night of October 23rd, 2018. A young man named Leo, a college student driving home for fall break, was making the trip. He was tired. He'd been on the road for 8 hours, fueled by nothing but lukewarm energy drinks and a playlist of fading indie rock. He wasn't a local. He didn't know the legends, the warnings, the eerie folklore of mile 142. All he saw was a glowing green sign promising a place to rest, a place to stretch his legs and maybe catch a quick nap before pushing on. To Leo, it was a welcome sight, an answer to his weary prayers. He flicked on his turn signal, the rhythmic clicking sound echoing in the otherwise silent car. He slowed down and guided his beat-up sedan onto the exit ramp that, according to all logic and every map in existence, wasn't there. His friends later said he sent a text right before. It just said, "Finally, a break." Pulling into a rest stop. See you in the M. That was the last anyone ever heard from him. As his car rolled down the ramp, something strange happened. The dash clock, which had just shown to 16 a.m., flickered. Then it froze to 17 a.m. The numbers burned with a digital stillness. The radio, which had been playing a soft rock station, crackled with static for a moment before settling into a strange, low hum. It wasn't the sound of a station losing signal. It was a pure, unwavering tone, almost like a single, sustained musical note. Leo probably didn't even notice at first. His attention focused on the path ahead. The ramp curved gently into the thick woods, the trees forming a dense canopy that blocked out the moonlight, plunging him into near-total blackness, illuminated only by his own headlights. The next morning, the search began. His parents, frantic with worry when he didn't arrive, reported him missing. Highway Patrol was alerted. They knew his route, and they knew he'd last been seen on Interstate 80. They started their search, methodically checking every mile marker, every ditch, every actual, verifiable rest stop along the way. They found nothing. It was as if he and his car had simply vanished from the face of the earth. But then, a trooper doing a secondary sweep of the area noticed something odd. Right around mile 142, sitting perfectly parallel to the highway on the dusty shoulder, was a car. It was Leo's sedan. There were no skid marks, no signs of a crash, no indication of how it had gotten there. The highway at this point was elevated slightly, with a steep, weed-choked embankment leading down to where the car was parked. There was no way it could have just rolled there. The trooper approached cautiously. The scene was unnervingly peaceful. The car was pristine, not a scratch on it. He peered through the window. The keys were still in the ignition. He tried the door handle, and it opened with a click. The first thing that hit him was the warmth. The engine was still warm to the touch, as if it had been turned off only minutes ago. But that was impossible. The car had been sitting there for hours, at least since sunrise. Then he noticed the interior. The radio was on, still emitting that strange, low hum. The dashboard clock was glowing. It read 2:17 a.m. It hadn't moved. It was frozen in time. A permanent digital ghost of the moment Leo took the exit. His phone was on the passenger seat, right next to a half-empty bottle of water. His wallet was in the center console. Everything was there. Everything except Leo. The search for Leo intensified. They brought in canine units, helicopters, and dozens of volunteers. They scoured the woods around mile 140 to 4 weeks. They found nothing. No footprints, no broken branches, no scrap of clothing. It was as if he had stepped out of his car and evaporated. The area where his car was found was just an empty stretch of road. There was no ramp, no path leading into the forest, and certainly no rest area. Just the dense, silent woods. The story of the phantom exit at mile 142 changed after that. It was no longer just a spooky tale for truckers. It was a warning. It had a name attached to it now. Leo. The boy who took the exit that wasn't there. The Highway Patrol officially listed the case as an unexplained disappearance. Privately, many of the officers who worked the case, the ones who saw the car, who felt the warm engine and saw the frozen clock, would tell you something else. They'd tell you that whatever that exit leads to, it's not a place you come back from. Some drivers now refuse to take that stretch of I-80 at night. Others, fueled by a morbid curiosity, slowed down as they approached mile 142, hoping to catch a glimpse of the ghostly green sign. And every now and then, on a dark, moonless night, they see it. Rest area. Next right. A glowing invitation to nowhere. A silent promise of a rest from which you might never wake up. The legend lives on. A chilling reminder that some roads are best left untraveled, and some exits are not meant to be taken. What do you think happened to Leo? Where does that phantom road lead? Let me know your theories down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and drive safe out there. The city lights had long since faded in my rearview mirror, swallowed by the suffocating darkness of the countryside. It was just me, my car, and a long, winding road that seemed to stretch into eternity. Midnight had come and gone, and the only sound was the hypnotic hum of the tires on the asphalt. It was a familiar rhythm, one that usually lulled me into a state of calm on these late-night drives back home from my shift. But tonight, something felt different. An unease settled in my stomach, cold and heavy. At first, I dismissed it as fatigue. I'd worked a double, and my mind was probably playing tricks on me. I turned the radio up, hoping some cheerful pop song would chase away the creeping dread. The station crackled, a burst of static disrupting the melody before it settled back into clarity. Strange. I hadn't even entered the dead zone near my house yet. Then I heard it. A soft, almost inaudible sound, weaving itself into the drone of the engine. It was a whisper of air, rhythmic and steady. A breath. In and out. In and out. My heart hammered against my ribs. I flicked my eyes to the passenger seat. Empty. The worn fabric of the seat was bathed in the pale green glow of the dashboard, undisturbed. I was alone. I had to be. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. "It's just the wind," I muttered, my own voice sounding small and foreign in the enclosed space. But the sound wasn't coming from outside. It was close. It was inside the car with me. The breathing continued, a faint, ghostly metronome marking the seconds. It never faltered, never changed its pace. It was a calm, patient sound that was anything but calming. I tried to focus on the road, on the white lines that appeared and disappeared under my headlights, but my attention kept being pulled back to the empty seat beside me. Every time I looked, there was nothing, just an empty space where a person should be. Yet, The feeling of a presence was so overwhelming, so palpable, that the hairs on my arms stood on end. I decided to check the back seat. Husto bisuri. My eyes darted to the rearview mirror. Empty. Just my own wide, terrified eyes staring back at me. As I looked back at the road, the radio exploded into a cacophony of static, loud and abrasive. It was like a physical shock. I jumped, my hand flying to the volume knob to turn it down. The moment my fingers touched the dial, the static vanished, and the music returned as if nothing had happened. My breath hitched. This was getting weird. I tried to rationalize it. A loose wire, atmospheric interference, but a chilling pattern started to emerge. Every time I dared to glance at the passenger seat, the radio was fine. But the second I looked away, back at the road or in the mirror, the static would return, a harsh, electric scream filling the car. It was as if something didn't want me to see it, but wanted me to know it was there. The breathing was still there, a constant, unnerving companion. In and out. I felt like I was going crazy. My rational mind was at war with my primal instincts, which were screaming at me to pull over and run. But where would I run to? Out here, in the middle of nowhere, the car was my only sanctuary. Or so I thought. I decided to test my theory. I kept my eyes locked on the empty passenger seat for a full 30 seconds. The music played on, clear and crisp. The breathing seemed to fade, almost as if it was holding its breath along with me. The moment I turned my head back to the road, the static roared back to life, louder this time, and the breathing resumed. A soft, deliberate sigh. I screamed. Not a loud scream, but a choked, terrified sound that was swallowed by the static. This wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't my imagination. Something was in the car with me, sitting right beside me, playing a twisted game. I felt a cold spot develop next to me, a distinct drop in temperature that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. It was a damped, chilling cold that seeped into my bones. I was too scared to look again. I kept my eyes glued to the road, my hands locked on the wheel in a death grip. The static was a constant roar now, a deafening wall of sound, and beneath it, the breathing. Always the breathing. I felt like I was in a cage with an invisible predator. I started talking to it, my voice trembling. What do you want? Please, just leave me alone. Of course, there was no answer. Only the static and the breathing. In and out. The miles crawled by. Each minute felt like an hour. I passed the familiar old oak tree that marked 5 miles to my house. I'd never been so desperate to see my own driveway. I imagined my front door, the warm light of the living room, the safety of my own home. As I made the final turn onto my street, a new fear gripped me. What if it followed me inside? What if this wasn't tied to the car? The thought was so terrifying that I almost missed my own driveway. I slammed on the brakes, the car skidding to a halt in front of my garage. The engine idled, and for a moment, everything was quiet. The static on the radio died. The breathing stopped. Silence. A heavy, expectant silenci. I sat there, frozen, for what felt like an eternity, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my chest. Slowly, cautiously, I reached for the door handle, my hand shaking so badly I could barely grab it. I just wanted out. I needed to get out of this car. And then it happened, a sound that made my blood run cold. Before I could even touch the handle, before I could turn off the engine, I heard a soft, mechanical click. I looked at the dashboard. A small, innocent light had just illuminated. The car's automatic system, the one I'd programmed to unlock the driver's door first for safety, had just unlocked a door. But it wasn't my door. It was the passenger door. The click echoed in the deafening silence, a final, chilling statement. An invitation that was letting itself out. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. I threw my own door open and scrambled out of the car, not even bothering to grab my bag or turn off the engine. I ran. I ran for my front door, fumbling with my keys, my hands slick with sweat. I burst inside, slammed the door shut, and locked every single bolt I had. I leaned against the door, gasping for air, my body shaking uncontrollably. Through the peephole, I could see my car, still running in the driveway. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the empty passenger seat. The passenger door was slightly ajar. After a few moments, the car's interior light, which had turned on when the door was opened, slowly faded to black. The door was still open. It was gone. For now. I haven't driven at night since, and every time I get in my car, even in broad daylight, the first thing I do is check the passenger seat. Thank you for watching. If you have a story that defies explanation, share it in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more unsettling tales. Stay safe. How dare The hum of the engine was a familiar comfort, a steady drone against the symphony of crickets and the whisper of wind rushing past my window. I'd been driving for hours, the endless ribbon of asphalt disappearing under my tires. It was just me, the moon, and the open road. At least, that's what I thought. Then, a glint in my rearview mirror. Headlights. Not unusual, of course. I was on a public highway, after all. Another late-night traveler, probably just as eager to reach their destination as I was. I didn't think much of it. I kept my foot steady on the gas, my eyes on the white lines guiding me through the darkness. The miles ticked by, but the headlights remained. They didn't get closer, they didn't fall back. They just stayed, perfectly paced, a constant presence in my mirror. It was strange. Most drivers either pass or eventually turn off. This one did neither. An hour passed. Then, too, the twin orbs of light were still there. A pair of unblinking eyes in the night. A prickle of unease started at the base of my neck. I decided to test a theory. I gently eased my foot off the accelerator, letting my speed drop from 70 to 60. The headlights behind me slowed in perfect sync. Not a foot closer, not a foot farther. Okay, weird. Maybe it's just someone cautious, matching my speed. I pushed the accelerator down again, climbing back up to 70. Then the lights mirrored my every move. A perfect, unwavering shadow. My heart started to beat a little faster. This wasn't normal. This wasn't just another driver. I tried to reason with myself. It's a long, straight road. Maybe they've set their cruise control and just happened to be going my exact speed. It's a coincidence. It has to be. But the feeling of being watched, of being followed, was becoming overwhelming. I slowed down again, this time more deliberately. 60, 50, 40. The car behind me was a ghost, its form shrouded in the glare of its own lights, but it matched my pace flawlessly. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. This was a game, and I was an unwilling participant. A wave of frustration and fear washed over me. Fine. You want to follow me? Let's see how you like this. I flicked on my turn signal and pulled over onto the gravel shoulder. The crunch of the stones loud in the sudden quiet. I killed my engine and waited, my eyes glued to the rearview mirror. The headlights behind me slowed, pulled onto the shoulder about 100 yards back, and just sat there, idling. Their brilliant beams cut through the darkness, pinning me in place. My breath hitched. My car, my little metal box, suddenly felt incredibly fragile. I could feel my own pulse thrumming in my ears. I waited. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10. The lights didn't move. They didn't dim. The engine of the other car was silent, or at least too far away for me to hear. It was just a silent, luminous stare. I couldn't take it anymore. This was too much. I turned the key, my engine roaring back to life, and peeled out, gravel spitting from my tires. I floated. 80, 90, 100 miles per hour. The world outside became a blur of dark trees and fleeting road signs. I glanced in the mirror, my heart sinking into my stomach. The headlights were still there. They hadn't fallen back an inch. It was impossible. No car could have accelerated that fast, could have matched my speed so perfectly from a dead stop. Panic set in cold and sharp. I was being hunted. But by what? What kind of person? What kind of thing, does this? I kept my foot pressed to the floor, my eyes darting between the road ahead and the terrifying lights behind. The chase continued for what felt like an eternity. The empty road, the oppressive darkness, and those two relentless lights were my entire world. My fuel gauge started to dip dangerously low. I knew I couldn't keep this up forever. I had to do something else. I had to lose them. I saw a sign for a winding side road up ahead. A risky move at this speed, but it was my only chance. I wrenched the wheel, tires squealing in protest as I veered off the highway and onto the narrow, tree-lined lane. The car fishtailed wildly before I regained control, plunging into an even deeper darkness. The trees formed a canopy overhead, blocking out the moonlight. The road twisted and turned, forcing me to slow down. I navigated the sharp corners, my focus absolute. For a moment, I thought I'd done it. The rear-view mirror was black, a wave of relief, so powerful it almost made me dizzy. Was it over me? I'd lost them. I laughed, a short, hysterical bark of a sound. It was over. But as I rounded the next bend, my blood ran cold. There they were. The headlights. They weren't behind me anymore. They were in front of me. They were sitting in the middle of the narrow road, blocking my path, shining directly into my eyes. I slammed on the brakes, my car skidding to a halt just yards away from the blinding lights. We sat there, facing each other. An impasse. I was trapped. I couldn't go forward, and I was too terrified to go back. Minutes stretched into an hour. The stalemate was absolute. The lights never wavered. There was no sound, no movement, just that intense, silent glare. I started to feel a strange sense of resignation. The fear was still there, but it was blanketed by an exhausted curiosity. What was tease? What did it want? As I stared, I started to notice something odd. There was no car. I squinted, trying to see past the glare. There was no silhouette of a vehicle, no glint of metal or glass. There were just two perfect, floating orbs of light, hovering in the air exactly where a car's headlights should be. My mind refused to process what I was seeing. It was a trick of the light, a hallucination brought on by exhaustion and fear. It had to be. Then the sun began to rise. The first hints of gray appeared on the horizon, slowly chasing away the deep black of night. The world began to take shape around me. The trees became more than just dark specters. The road became a dusty, cracked surface instead of a void. And the lights in front of me, they were still there. But as the sky brightened, they seemed to lose their substance, becoming fainter, more ethereal. By the time the sun had fully risen, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, the road ahead was completely empty. There was nothing there. Not a car, not a person, not a trace. I sat in my car, trembling, the engine still running. It was over. I was safe. I took a deep, shaky breath, trying to calm my racing heart. I was just tired. It was all a bad dream. I put the car in reverse, ready to get back to the highway and forget this ever happened. As primera ba, sked up my eyes, instinctively flicked to the rearview mirror. And I screamed. The headlights were there. They weren't on the road behind me anymore. They were inside my car. Reflected in the mirror, hovering in the empty space where the back seat should be, were two bright, unwavering lights. They were with me, and I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I would never, ever be alone again. Have you ever driven home on autopilot? Your hands know the turns, your mind is a million miles away, and suddenly you're pulling into your driveway without remembering a single second of the journey. That was me. Every single day. For 7 years. Same highway, same exits, same monotonous stretch of asphalt. It was so familiar I could probably do it with my eyes closed. But one Tuesday evening, something was different. It started subtly. A billboard seen 1,000 times. The one for Johnson and Sons Plumbing. Now read Johnson and Sons Pluming. A typo, right? A simple mistake, I chuckled, thinking someone was getting fired tomorrow. But then came the next landmark, a huge old oak tree that had been struck by lightning years ago, its jagged, blackened branches, a familiar silhouette against the sunset. Except tonight, the tree was whole, full, green, and untouched. A chill, cold and sharp, crawled up my spine. My mind started racing, trying to rationalize. Maybe they planted a new one. A very, very big new one. It didn't make sense. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles turning white. I told myself I was just tired. A long day at the office, too much caffeine, not enough sleep. That had to be it. My brain was playing tricks on me. I focused on the road, forcing myself to breathe. But the anomalies kept coming, like glitches in a computer program. A gas station that was always a Shell was now a Shaw. Its familiar red and yellow logo, just slightly off color. The Greenwood Estates sign at the entrance to my subdivision was spelled Grinwood Estates. Grinwood, it sounded like something out of a horror movie. My heart was hammering against my ribs now. This wasn't fatigue. This was wrong. I snatched my phone from the passenger seat, my fingers fumbling as I pulled up the map. The little blue dot pulsed calmly, showing my car moving steadily along the route. It said I was exactly where I was supposed to be. 5 minutes from home. I zoomed in, and my breath caught in my throat. My street, Oak Lane, was labeled Oak Lane. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, to drive back to the city, to go anywhere but forward. But where would I go? The map, the supposedly infallible satellite in the sky, insisted this was the correct path. It was a bizarre, terrifying paradox. My eyes were telling me I was lost, but technology was telling me I was found. I felt a strange pull, a morbid curiosity overriding my fear. I had to see where this road ended. I had to see what was waiting for me at the end of Oak Lane. The drive felt impossibly long. The sun had completely set, and the world outside my headlights was pitch black. The familiar, comforting glow of streetlights was absent. There were no other cars, no signs of life, just me and this silent, twisted version of my commute. Finally, I saw it. The turn. I took it, my car's tires crunching on gravel I'd never heard before. My driveway was supposed to be paved. And there it was. My house, number 23. But it wasn't my house. It was the same shape, to semi-size, the same blue siding I'd picked out myself. But every single light was on, blazing with a harsh, sterile white light that poured from every corner of the building. And the windows. There were no windows. The walls were smooth, unbroken planes of siding. Where my front door should have been, there was just more wall. Where the big bay window in the living room should have been, just a flat, featureless surface glowing from within. My phone buzzed in my hand. A notification. Primera lockdown. My blood running cold. The map app had updated. The little blue dot was now stationary, right on top of the house. A message popped up in a cheerful, friendly font. You are home. I stared at the screen, then back at the impossible, windowless house, bathed in that eerie light. I was parked in front of a place that wore the skin of my home, but was utterly alien. I could hear a faint humming sound coming from it, a low, steady thrum that seemed to vibrate in my bones. I put the car in reverse. I didn't care what the map said anymore. My foot slammed on the gas, the tires spinning on the loose gravel before catching. I didn't look back. I drove, fast and reckless, ignoring the strange, misspelled signs. My only focus on the distant glow of the city lights I prayed were still real. I didn't stop until I was in a brightly lit 24-hour diner, surrounded by people, the smell of coffee and grease. A welcome anchor to reality. I never went back. I sold the house through a realtor, over the phone, never explaining why I wouldn't return to the property even to pack my things. They said the buyers found it in perfect condition, just as I'd left it that morning. Normal windowed. Waiting. Sometimes, late at night, I pull up my address on a map online. It always shows my old house, just as it should be. Oak Lane. Not Oak Lane. But I never drive that highway after dark anymore. I take the long way around, because I know what's out there. A place that looks like home, with all the lights on, waiting for someone to arrive. And I have no intention of ever finding out what happens when you knock on a door that isn't there. If you ever feel like your reality is shifting or you're struggling with distressing thoughts, please know that help is available. Reaching out to a mental health professional or calling a support hotline can make a world of difference. Your well-being is what truly matters. Thanks for listening, and remember to subscribe for more stories. Stay safe out there,